We are live.
We'll call our meeting to order here on September 14th, 2023. If you'd all please rise, we'll pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, Brian, if you would, as usual, would you do roll call, please?
Nancy?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kelly?
Yes.
Kelly?
Here.
Bink?
Here.
And Mike is absent.
Mike is not here. He said he was sick, so we would need to see if you're inclined to give him a pass on tonight. So open up the floor.
I was going to say there's quite a few absences this year. I really would expect more of him to be here during council meetings.
He did say he was sick.
I move to excuse Mike.
Is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay, let's have a vote, roll call, Brian.
Nancy?
I'm going to vote no.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kelly?
No.
Kelly? Yeah. Bink?
Yes.
An excused absence. Okay, we're now at our public comment period, and we have some fresh faces here tonight. If you would like to address council, you can come up and have a seat and introduce yourself to our streaming audience, and you have 5 minutes after you do that.
I didn't know how many of these I need, but
We can share if need be.
Yeah, we can share.
Is this? Yeah. We'll pass it
I
on.
just
Sharing.
need a
We can share.
zoom the zoning map in a little bit so that
Okay, all
you
right,
can really see the
thank you.
one I'm talking about.
Here, do-
My name's Herb Graham. I recently bought some property on Lake Street and it wasn't previously zoned. And on the part I got highlighted there on 4, I'm gonna read this. But it says whenever land is annexed into or otherwise becomes a part of the village of Georgetown, or whether it's already located in the village, included within the zoning district, either through an error or omission, such property shall be officially included in R1 zoning district until otherwise classified. Then it says within 60 days after the annexed area officially becomes a part of the village of Georgetown, or an error or omission is recognized, the village of Georgetown shall obligate itself to take action in order to initiate a zone change of the area in question, enable it to the most appropriate zoning classification. So on this last page, I got an arrow pointed to the land I bought. And I've been talking to Mr. Click 4 or 5 times, and they moved on, going ahead and zoning it. And he said the zoning administrator is off on leave or something. But the area is right in the middle of R2. And he had called me and said they was going to leave it R1. Well, I mean, my question is, there's no R1 around it. And the Bating Drive there, south of it's all R1, where you got the residential area. And all the white you see there, that's like my lot. That's lots that has not been zoned. So really where the arrow goes across, that's a multi-unit building here, right straight across from my lot. And now the one across the street, he said is R1, but it's because they just bought it, same as me, and it's not actually zoned. And which this guy, if he's going to do single family, he probably don't care. But my plan was I wanted to do handicap 2 units. So therefore, I'd like for you to go ahead. Mr. Click said you haven't approved of it being R1 yet. So I'd like for you to at least look at it, because there's really no R1 around it anywhere. And it'd be like one lot or one or two lots out there in the middle of R2. So,
Solicitor, make some comments here, please.
Mr. Ram, I actually had talked to Mr. Owens and Mr. Click about this. So I just wanted to check, just so you know, it automatically becomes R1, but the council does have the power to change that zoning. So from what I'm hearing, you want council to consider changing that from R1 to R2. Is that correct?
well, maybe I'm misinterpreting this, but it says within 60 days after the annex area comes in, and it was R1 until 60 days you have to go ahead and zone it right. I'm not really asking for it to be changed. I'm asking to look and zone it, to where it should be zoned.
Yeah, so it automatically comes in as R1, and that's not uncommon for zoning codes. But like I said, council can change it to R2 if that's your request. What you're telling us is you believe that's the right zoning, correct? R2?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no R2, there's no R1 around it anyway.
Yep. So what I'll do then is I'll get with Mr. Owens, our administrator, and I'll share with him, if he's not listening tonight, what you've shared. And I think you make some very valid points about the surrounding area, and then we'll bring it back to council.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Delbert, do you have anything for council? Okay. 2 cents versus has to be within 5 minutes.
Delbert Eichholz, Georgetown. Back when we talked about the internet, I mentioned that business can change daily. I mean, it's a changing business all the time. And since then, this farm that I was at tonight, that I got down on Swally Road, it's off on a back road. A week or so ago, there was a guy out there measuring how far from the road and taking pictures of poles and all this stuff. So Cincinnati Bell has a contract with the government, I guess, to run fiber optic to every house. And this place is a mile off the road. I said, I know what that's going to cost. It's probably over $10,000. And plus the survey and to look at it. So in other words, if we would have spent all that money on internet and the next day we find out Cincinnati Bell's getting all this money to go to everybody, might have lost a lot of money. Then the other subject is I talked about using trappers to,
Groundhogs.
groundhogs and raccoons, I guess.
Yeah.
Some suggestions would be, they wouldn't have to wait until trapping season, which opens about mid-November. If they wanted to start now and dispose of them or whatever, they probably could if you wanted to draw up some requirements. I'd make sure they had at least 2 traps so they could set one. If they catch something, they can take that one away and put another one down. And then I'd make sure they had something to cover that with, because even though these tenants or whatever would like to see these coons gone, they probably don't want to see it bouncing off the cage. So, I mean, they could have 10 traps if they wanted to, but they ought to have at least 2, or if they got one, then they got to take that trap with them and then come back. But
Chief, did we have something like that on our website about the hunting of the groundhogs and stuff? Did we have something on the website?
Me and Art talked about it, and I'd also got with the ODNR, and they're the only option is basically to use like a critter getter or something like that, or like you guys are talking, getting a local trapper or somebody to get them. That's really your only option. There's just
the way I'd do that, I'd get some people to apply and I'd hand pick them. So you don't have somebody that, gets everybody all riled up.
They have to be licensed. We're talking
And
to
they'd have
some
to be
people, they gotta be licensed by the state.
I don't know if you have to have a license to trap or not. You have to have a hunting
In
license.
town,
Do you?
to be
They
like
probably
critter
do.
getter and all that, they all have. So I know that Art's been talking to somebody local who used to have a license and is gonna get the license back and
Draw up some requirements.
Absolutely.
And go over it so
Mhm.
you don't miss anything. But you know, a critter getter guy could piss somebody off too, so it wouldn't be much different. If he goes in there and starts hitting it in the head with a club,
Well,
we're
they
gonna hear
wouldn't.
about it.
They take it off
Or if they-
and do.
Catch their little
Whatever.
poodle.
And one of the things I like to say, since you brought it up, Delbert, I've heard a couple of people say, well, I wish you'd come and get the bats out of my house and this and that.
What?
The bats. You know, they think this is not maybe something the village should do. Most of those raccoons, all of the raccoons, as far as I know, are living in our sewers. So, you know, I think that's a responsibility of the village to get rid of them. Then they go out at night and forage, but they're living in the sewers. And if we don't get it taken care of pretty soon, the whole town's going to be run over.
So what
So,
happens if a wildlife like that gets too multiplied? If one of them gets distemper, they all get distemper.
Right.
And then so does the people's pets.
yeah, so it's
So,
just something that needs to
distemper
be
and
taken
rabies.
care of. And
Got a minute, Delbert.
I had a deck of cards, maybe. I'm done.
Thank you. Okay. Have other people over here. I think we have Jeremy Jones. Would you like to address council?
Jeremy Jones, good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. One thing that has been brought to my attention with Main Street under construction is now Apple Street has become Main Street. And as you get further back in Main Street, there is down where the gully is, it's really tight with two vehicles passing by one another. And I can't always say that that's ever been occurrence when I've driven on Apple Street, but it is now. So I wanted to bring that to your all's attention to kind of look into. And just gonna say, as I said last time, I'm here to observe, and I am a candidate for mayor.
Chief, on the thoroughfare that we're using as Apple Street a lot of people use it as Main Street. It is narrow in places there. Would it be better to direct people to Elm Street and come back up, or is that a hardship? Carol, you don't want them on
The roads
Water
are-
Street, do you?
The roads are definitely wider, if you were to direct them, have them go all the way down north to Elm. The
Mhm.
road is definitely, wider and made for more of that purpose.
But will they do that though?
That's true.
is it most people are going to drive what they know? I mean, Apple Street is busy because I used to cut over that way to go out to the school to pick the kids up in that. And it can get, thank heavens, it's usually most people
That
going in one direction.
spot just past,
But
just past. the
Especially
alley
if it's a
there,
big
It
truck.
is tight.
Yeah, very tight.
Has there been any incidents on that street since we've done this?
I thought I was gonna roll over it a few times through the years, but,
Well, let's keep an eye on it, which I know you are, because
Yeah.
Jeremy has a valid point there too.
I would also say, Dale, we're in a countdown here, like maybe a week before it gets done.
Yeah, we're
Maybe.
thinking, yeah.
So, I mean, it doesn't make your point less valid, but it does hopefully have an ending date for that whole situation.
All right. We have a group here in the back. Would they like to address council? Come on up if you would. That means you have to come up front, though. They'll pull a couple more up there.
Can you guys come up and Rob? We're the Courthouse Square Association. I'm Carol Myers.
Joy Hanselman.
Kim Scheffler. And our group was part of the National Night Out, and we were having so much fun. It ended before we handed out the plaque. So I was going to read this. This is to the Georgetown Police Department. An appreciation for your service to the residents of Georgetown, Ohio, in keeping our community safe. August 1st, 2023, National Night Out. This is for the chief, and this is for Angels. Explain what we did.
Yes. Just kind of add a little bit on top of it.
I've worked very closely with, especially Carol and the Courthouse Square Association, along with several businesses, churches. It's been 5 years. We've had 3 events. Unfortunately, that little nasty word, COVID, was it 4?
Yeah.
Okay. COVID did kill one of our events, unfortunately.
2.
But I'm not good with numbers. but like the way it all started was back in 2018. I approached Chief Freeland. I kept getting a flyer about National Night Out. I hosted it before for other agencies. And I came to Chief and requested to do it. He's like, as long as it don't cost me overtime and the community has a good time, go for it. It's your pup. Well, about next day, he got a phone call from Miss Myers, who also wanted to do the same event. So he passed the information along, and the event's just been growing. I mean, it's we're proud of it. I know our community's proud of it. Everybody looks forward to it. When I'm out in the community, not in uniform, everybody asks, when's the next meetings? When is the next event? So it's taken a life of its own. So I just want to thank the Courthouse Square Association, all of our businesses within our community, all of our organizations, the fire department. Chief Rocky's always had the fire department up there every year. Unfortunately, one year they did have a call during the event and left us. But it's just been, it just shows how strong Georgetown is, shows how much Georgetown cares for its own community, and just Georgetown knows how to party. We know how to have a good time. So that's all I have.
Chief, if you get that plaque, I'll take you guys' pictures while the ladies are still seated. Captain, you want to come up and join? Show me your good side, if you would.
Don't do it.
1, 2, 3. Do one more. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank you, officers, and thanks the Courthouse Square Association for your continued interest in presenting this program. And it's, if any of you were up at the Eagles this year, there were hundreds of people up there at all times. So beautiful weather, and everyone had a good time.
The sign of a successful event is when it grows every year. So they've done a good job.
Very good. We also have now a special presentation tonight. We have Larry Hatfield, who is architect, engineer, whatever you wish to call him, a hometown boy, and he is here. He's with North Shore Design, and he will come up and he will do a presentation about our water building that we are fast approaching.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This project started well over a year ago. As everyone knows, the Village Maintenance Group has not had a facility to work out of that's been really occupiable. So they've since moved in with the electric group, and the idea was, of course, to build a facility that they could occupy and their equipment could be housed in that building as well. We completed the drawings, I think, in February. We had several meetings with utility group and made design changes, reflected their needs. We designed a 5,000 square foot building to house their equipment, and it also would provide them with office space and working space. It's non-opulent. It's very basic building. We finished the drawings in February, submitted the drawings to Claremont County for permit, received comments. Claremont County asked that we include handicapped accessible parking spaces for the facility. We fought that. We lost that battle. Sometimes the building code has things in there that just don't make common sense, but as an architect, we have to abide by the laws. So we made those modifications. We bid the project out in April and received bids in May, a bid actually in May that was well over the estimated budget for the project. Keeping in mind that the project had been budgeted almost a year prior, and everyone knows how inflation has been not great. It's affected literally everything, especially the construction industry. Nonetheless, we bid the project out. Project came in over budget, well over budget. So I think the village made a motion to go ahead and rebid the project. We rebid the project, received 3 bids in July, on July 14th. Which isn't the greatest coverage in the world, but it's adequate, especially in this market. I've found that a lot of contractors are busy. And as a result, it's quite frankly, it's hard to get subcontractors and even contractors to bid work. So the fact that we got three good bids for this project was encouraging. The low bid, I've looked at the bids. The low bid looks complete. That contractor had a complete package. He quantified everything. That looked like it was, really ready to go from that standpoint. I will say this too. When I first looked at this project, I looked at it from the standpoint of, what's the best interest of Georgetown, which is to build this building as economically as possible, to design it and build it. And we looked at doing this out of steel. Steel was much too expensive. We looked at doing it as a pole barn, quite frankly. Doesn't comply with the building code. We build it with that system. Doesn't meet energy code. Doesn't meet structural design limit loads. So what we've got is basically a wood frame structure that has concrete foundation, concrete floor, trench drain, grease interceptor, oil interceptor. That building will last longer than I would say anybody in this room is going to last. You'll get at least 50 or 60 years out of that building. So it's a good investment for the community from that standpoint. I've got a 43-page set of drawings I'm happy to go through. I don't know if you guys want me to. I'm happy to do that.
Raise your hands if you want to go through the all 40-some pages.
Or I'll answer any questions you've got.
Larry, I have a question. Could you provide for council, at the last meeting, there were a lot of questions about the bidding process, the range of bids that came in? Do you remember the high-low on those, just so that people can know what the differences were?
Yes.
Maybe not all the nuances, but at least the amounts.
Yes. There were three bids of the last round. KT Construction was the high bid. They were at $1,047,000. The next lowest bid was, I take that back. That's with all the add extras. I want to add a little detail to this. When the first bid came in, it was well over budget. So I talked it over with Art, and I asked Art, I came up with several ideas to save money. So, and I asked Art to do the same. So we made some, we gave up add alternates, or I should say deduct alternates to the bidders. That basically what I said was, for example, and I'm answering your question indirectly, but I'll get around to it. To exclude the underground water service, the village can do that. Exclude the underground electric service, the village can do that. Exclude the sanitary service, the village can do that work much more economically than a contractor can do. I asked for a deduct to go with the shingle roof instead of a metal roof. I asked to omit the trench drain that's in the middle of the building and the oil interceptor. Looking at plywood inside the wall instead of metal liner panels. Reduce some electrical core drops and a few other things. So those were all deducts that each contractor listed in their bids. So the actual bid, high bid, was $1,012,000, $1,112,000 without the deducts. With the deducts, he was at $1,047,000. The second bid was Axe Craft Construction. Their bid was at $872,000. All in, And then with the deducts, $800,000 by making those reductions. The low bid was Perkins and Carmack. Their number was 826. So they were about $50,000 lower than the second lowest bid. And then with their deducts that the village has accepted, they're at 784. So they're well under the high bid. Did I answer your question in a long-winded way?
So the bid on that, just so I can be clear, was 784? Because our legislation reads 765.6. Do you know why there's a difference? Was there some additional deductions?
Probably.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
I just want to make sure that if we approve it tonight, we've got the right amount in there. 784. Yeah, it reads 765 versus 784. Oh,
Second bidder was 8,
8.25,
something like that, or 8.
Yeah, with deducts, assuming everyone took the same deducts, you're looking at the next lowest bidder was well over $50,000 more than the low bid. The deducts on the Perkins and Carmack bid were, if you take 820, and maybe my math on my spreadsheet's wrong. What the base bid was 826, minus $8,000 for the village to do the underground water, minus $9,500 for the village to do the underground electric to the building, minus $13,000 for the village to do the sanitary service to the building, minus $9,000 to do shingles on the roof rather than a metal panel, and then minus $2,000 to do the plywood liners inside the building instead of metal liners. That's a total savings of $41,000 from the bid off of 826.
That's 880 something.
Yeah, it'd be 784.5.
2020, you're getting 7. No, you're
It's
getting,
not ridiculously low.
it's gonna be like the 784 range. This is.
I mean, the two low bidders are pretty close. They're within 5% of one another, which is what you usually expect for good bids are usually pretty close.
I know that Perkins, they'll do most of the work themselves, which instead of hiring that, like concrete stuff, they'll do the work.
Didn't work for us, I think, on our sewer plant, if I remember
I think so,
right.
too. I think they did work on this building at one point, or maybe they bid this, they bid the fire station project. I'm not sure.
Right, right.
'Cause, when we just really received one bid for the first time we put this around and it was over, I just reached into all my contacts and I probably sent 24 invitations out to bid myself. And I know the village advertised it. So to get as much coverage as possible.
But we had it in the local papers here, Larry. I don't know where there's like a clearinghouse where these things are placed out there for potential contractors to see what's out there on. So I assume they all have little teams of people that do nothing except scour newspapers, publications, and whatever.
Probably. I don't know. Typically that stuff does, so yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't put it out yourself,
No.
because that's where I used to get all my workers.
No, it usually, I got several calls though from agencies that were going to advertise it, so.
Every day you get a package with buildings and whatever to bid on.
Mhm.
You just pick through the ones you wanted.
Larry, there was a question, and again, this is not your question because it's a part of what the bid was. The bond that the company had in there for $13,000, is that a typical price for, I assume that's like a performance bond or some sort of surety bond?
Yeah, a bond it's usually a percent to 3% of the total cost of the
Okay.
project.
And they get a new bond for every project. It's
Yeah.
not like a blanket bond for the whole year. Right, okay, okay, okay. All right. Other questions for Larry?
Was the number then 784,500? Is that what we come up with?
That's the number that I've got on my spreadsheet.
All right.
Now, I will say this, the contractor, the low bidder, had a $9,000 error on his tabulation
In our favor?
in your favor.
Then, shh. No kidding. You can't.
So, well, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the latitude to do that. I just know that I entered all his numbers into my spreadsheet and he had made a $9,000 error. My guess is if we try to hold him to that, he's going to get it back in change orders. That's my experience. But, what goes around comes around.
So in order to make sure that it's correct, Natalie had sent me that number that we put in the legislation. I was just checking my emails. But we've had a lot of communication things going on at the top right now. So what I might suggest is just to protect the record, if maybe entertain an amendment to the legislation in an amount not to exceed 784.5. And that way, if there is a little bit of a lower number for whatever reason, the final contract will reflect that. So if someone, before you consider the legislation, makes that amendment, then I think that'll cover us. So.
There is one more thing. It's a minor issue, but the contractor will take care of ordering all their inspections and dealing with all that. But you are required to do special inspections with projects. So I solicited a proposal from Alt Witzik on behalf of the village to do special inspections. What that means basically is to get a final certificate of occupancy. The building department's going to come out and they're going to do multiple inspections. But for us to get a final permit, they're going to ask for our special inspections report. So the village will need to solicit someone. Alt Witzik does this all the time and they're very economical to basically test, to witness the soil and the proof rolling for the project, to test the foundations, to inspect the foundations rather, to test the concrete, inspect the reinforcing, and then to inspect the wood framing. So they'll send their engineer out to do that just to make sure everything's being built properly. That's typical on every commercial project, every public project. But that is $5,200. That was not in the bid because that is the responsibility of the property owner. In this case, would be the village.
Questions about that? Okay.
One quick one, that's not included. That's a totally separate contract.
That's a separate fee.
Thank you.
If we were to do that, do we need to enter in an agreement with them, or is that something that's facilitated through you? What do we do?
You would need to sign this agreement. I think I sent this to Art already, but I can resend it just to make sure.
Okay. Any other questions in regard to that?
Okay, so what amount are we talking about not exceeding? 784.9?
784.5,
Plus there will be this expense, but
but that won't be part of it.
Separate.
that'd be separate.
Yeah.
One thing that one member expressed to me is like, why is there so much money being spent for earthwork and gravel on this project? So if you have any ideas, Larry?
Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of clearing done there. I'll tell you what, Jeremy, let's see, can you scroll down when you get to a site drawing? I'll know. Should be.
It's lagging. These are big graphics, but I'll get you.
Oh, that's okay. Should be the first, you're getting close. Yeah, right there. Probably that's the existing conditions drawing. Go down one more.
Like
No, you're fine.
intermission music or something.
That's why I didn't want to go through all 40 drawings. I get it.
This
There
here?
you go,
Yeah,
right there. So, Mr. Mayor, that the drawing that's up on the screen right now, that the hatched area is all disturbed soil that needs to be regraded. And there's a lot of clearing that has to be done there. And there's a lot of gravel, quite frankly, because I think that, I know they wanted the extra space, horizontal space, because a lot of that area previously was used for transformers and telephone pole locations. And they needed the extra area for laying out and for working.
And is this the trench drain here? This?
Yeah, that would be the sanitary
Oh, okay.
and water too, probably come through there. Oh, the trench drain is actually, I'm sorry, in the building. There's a 35-foot trench drain that runs down the middle of the building.
Oh, and this is because.
Yeah, if you want to go to that drawing that shows the trench drain, you guys have to cut me off here. This gets really boring. If you want to go to, hang on here, let's go to drawing A101.
You give me a page number, I can do it faster.
I don't know what the page number of the PDF is. It's probably, type in page 10. Let's see where that gets us. We can go to
One more
that.
page. You like that
Well,
one?
that'll work right there. That's good enough. You can see that's a blow up. That shows the area that's being disturbed and regraded and gravelled. And then you can see the new building. And there's that right there where your cursor is. That's a trench drain that runs down the middle of the building, so that they can wash their trucks, whatever they need to do.
Is that exit into sanitary sewer?
Yeah, that goes into a oil interceptor, and then it goes. They had to, quite. That's an expensive item.
You asked why it costs so much for the dirt work. When I built this building over here for the juvenile and probate court, it started getting wet. And that dirt has to be compacted to a certain compaction, like 3,000 pounds or whatever, for the floor to be poured on. So the contractor was crying he's not making any money because he'd start and then it would rain. And he couldn't get his equipment out of there. He was stuck for a long time.
I'm stuck, yeah.
So you can't guess, not guessing or not knowing when it's going to start. If it starts this winter, it could be hard to get that dirt compacted the way it is, the way they need it. Otherwise, you can't pour the floor. They won't let you.
Yeah, which is why you have the inspections. Contractor will make sure that the conditions are right so that when he calls for his inspections, he passes. Otherwise, you're right, you get a lot of junk
And
that
the
way.
footers have to be down to good solid
Yep.
clay,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not always.
No, you're exactly right.
This is a large area here, so quarter, half acre, and the shaded bit there, quarter acre?
At least a quarter acre.
Yeah. When it's-
Yeah, we try to keep, it may be closer to a half an acre by the time you figure everything in. If you disturb more than an acre, then you've got to provide detention. We try to avoid that.
Topsoil has to be hauled off.
I don't know. They'll either haul it off or they'll store it somewhere on site. They'll probably work with those guys, decide what they want to do, quite frankly.
I'll take it.
You're first in line, Deborah, let's put it that way. Okay. Any other questions for Larry? If not, we could leap ahead on our general business form and we could go down to section I. It's on page 12. It's the resolution awarding the construction bid. So Kelly, if you could read this by title only, please, page 12.
A resolution accepting the bid of Perkins Carmack Construction LLC for the construction of a public utilities building and authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement for the work to be performed.
We also need an amendment on there, the project not to exceed $784,500. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, and then the rest of the language will catch it.
Okay.
I move to amend the resolution to insert that the amount should not to exceed $784,500.
Questions, concerns?
needs a second.
Second it.
Oh, okay, yeah. We had we had a motion?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't see it.
Yes.
And Nancy, you second that, is that correct? Any questions, concerns? If- Vote on the amendment second, okay.
Separate.
Separate, okay, so let's have a roll call vote on this, please.
Kelly Campbell. Yes. Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Bink.
Yes.
Jeremy
Yes.
and Nancy.
Yes.
And we would need you want to give me that number there? Or we'll wait till we do. We need a motion to adopt the amendment to this project.
I move to adopt the not to exceed $784,500
Okay,
amendment.
we have that. Who wishes to
That
second?
version, that version.
That version.
I'll second.
Okay, Kelly Campbell second. Let's do a roll call vote.
Kelly Campbell.
Yes.
Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Bink.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
It's 1344.
Okay. Okay. Well, Larry, if you want to escape, you can, but you're welcome to stay and enjoy the rest of our meeting with us if you would, but
I might escape, but I just want to say thank you. It's been an interesting project, but we've tried our best to make it work for the village. I truly, sincerely have the village's best interest in mind when I work on these projects, so.
we appreciate what you've done for our community too, so.
It's been a long, arduous process. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Let's go back up to our general business on page 1. We have our meeting minutes from August the 24th. And if there are any corrections, deletions, additions that need to be made to that, you can bring them up at this time. And if there is none, after you look through them, we will entertain a motion to approve them as written. We have a motion by Kelly to approve them as written. Do we have a second? By Nancy. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Bink.
Yes.
Nancy
Yes.
and Jeremy.
Yes.
All right. On page 4 of your packet is a review of the August 24th CDC meeting minutes. Members are here for that. They can answer any questions or concerns you may have, or if they wish to give a little dialogue, they are more than welcome to.
We're just working on the historic signage. We felt like there was a lot of it that wasn't clear. And with more businesses in town coming in, new businesses, it was a good time to go over those. So we're still working through the ordinance, but we're getting there.
With big high five to John Ludi and Solomon
Solomon.
Pitzer, who have been instrumental and put a lot of time into it.
Absolutely. They've been on the
Mhm.
Historic Signage Committee since the very beginning, which was probably back in, what, Dale, 80s?
3 or 4 or something like that,
Yeah, so
maybe.
they've been through it.
Mhm.
We're the newbies, so
Right.
we listen to them.
All right. If there's no other questions, we'll move on. On page 6 of your packet is the budget meeting minutes from that meeting. Again, questions can be directed to the committee members, or if the committee wishes to make a comment, they're more than welcome to. And if there are none, this is for your review. You can always contact those members of that panel to get any more information. On page 6, page 6 again,
Budget was page 5.
the budget was page 5,
Yeah.
okay. On page 6 is a review of the Emergency Services Committee meeting minutes of August the 28th. And if there's questions there, this really dealt with just the police at this point in time. Chief Rocky was not needed at this particular meeting. Chief, I don't know if you wish to make any comments, or Captain Staggs.
Sure. Matt, do you want to go ahead and go up to that table?
or first, before we do that, let me ask the committee members if they wish to make a comment first. That would be Kelly and Jeremy.
I don't think, I'm looking at Kelly, I don't think we have anything that's gonna be more important than what Captain Staggs has to
Right,
say.
I'd
So,
say
yeah,
he go ahead and lead it.
yeah.
Well, the reason we actually requested to have the meeting, reason being is we are in a pickle. We've been in a pickle for a while. And we have found it ever since COVID and a lot of the things that have happened in the press in the last 3 or 4 years that have kind of made people shy away from wanting to do this profession. Every time that we're lucky enough to get some part-time officers in here, somebody snags them up because everybody, I'm talking from Cincinnati PD, Loveland, Mariemont, Fairfax, all these places that just Sharonville that all pay way more money than we can even touch. They're all hiring because they had, when all those things were happening in the press and everything else, we had mass retirements in this profession. So now all these places that we cannot compete with are all offering full-time jobs. So, I can't fault any person for wanting to better themselves. And we recently, within the last couple of months, we had 2 officers that left for full-time positions at other departments. And both of them said on their way out the door, if you guys had a full-time job, I would stay. I love working here. So what we proposed at that meeting, that committee meeting, was to do what a lot of other departments are doing in this unfortunate time we're in, is they are eliminating their part-time officers and they are strictly going to all full-time. So what we proposed was to do away with the part-time and to bring an additional full-time officer in place. It's not dollar for dollar. There's going to be some expense there, but it's not. Once you subtract what we are already spending in part-time for overtime with the full-timers trying to cover shifts, whether that's somebody's sick, somebody's off, somebody got injured, or we're just short-staffed. Once you deduct those numbers, they definitely, it starts encroaching in very quickly on how much it would cost us to have an additional full-time officer. The other issue you have with, being short-staffed and nobody to cover those days off is you have overworked officers, which affects morale, affects their, their outlook on the job. And we may even be in the point, and that, you have an officer that's being overworked here, he may be looking himself or herself to go someplace else. So it's, I don't know if everybody has been given the numbers. I do have copies here if anybody wants copies of what I gave to the committee. And I believe the mayor sent out meeting minutes, which kind of gave a synopsis of everything. I'll just pass that along there. Captain Staggs, the reason why I had him come up, one of the line items on this spreadsheet that I put together has the overtime. It has both the overtime that we did for since 2020 to 2023 to date for what we spent on part-timers, what we spent on overtime, the hours that we had for comp time, which is when the full-time officers are working over. The numbers there at the bottom are just adding the part-time and overtime for those years. Matt, one of the questions that came up during that meeting, I believe it was Jeremy that may have brought it up, correct me if I'm wrong, wanted to know how many of those overtime hours were actually to cover shifts. And I believe Captain Staggs crunched those numbers. Do you need that in front of you?
It was approximately 80% of those hours were to cover the shifts. And then the rest would have been like courts, maybe having to stay over for a case or something of that nature.
Do auxiliary officers get paid?
I'm sorry?
Do auxiliary officers get paid?
They do not. And we only have one that works the road, and that's, geez, I can't talk, John Fetters. And the reason why he actually did that voluntarily, because he is retired from the sheriff's department, and our part-time officers pay into the same retirement that he retired from. So that, and there caused him issues with his insurance. So they were going to be charging him oodles of money to continue his insurance. So he thought it would be better to just drop to auxiliary so that way he could continue to keep his commission. And, but every time you see John Fetters out on the road, he's doing it for absolutely nothing. So.
So let me understand this graph, because I actually asked Natalie a question about this today because it just didn't make any sense to me. These numbers by year, that's not just part-time, that's overtime too, right?
Correct.
Right. Because when I saw that we had 2 part-time officers and the range of the yearly expenses went up to 88,931. I thought that can't be right. That cannot be right for part-time. So that's part-time and overtime.
Here's the breakdown. That's
Yeah.
part-time.
Yeah. Yeah, I just want, because right here it says that's what part-time
Yeah,
costs.
and that's why I broke down what we actually spent out of the overtime
Right.
to cover shifts.
That makes sense.
And those numbers are part-time fluctuated through the year. You know, one year, I think, off the top of my head, we started out with 4, and by the end of the year, we had 1. You know, because I think 2 ended up going full-time, and then another one left, and so it's not for the entire year, so it fluctuated throughout the year. And another thing we found that departments are doing, Mount Orb's doing this now, and it's if they do have part-time, they do not allow them to work at any other department. They can only work for them, which is honestly, this line of work's smart because of the liability. They get in a deadly force situation in another department, their training at Mount Orb can be pulled into play in that situation. So if they did something wrong, there could be vicarious liability there. So
A lot of that overtime is accrued because there has been comp time that has to be accounted for. So an officer such as Matt or Jesse has to work more than the allotted hours they have. So that's because the shifts can't be covered.
Didn't you guys talk about, you said something about, I think the wording that was used was vetted? Like if you were to grab a couple of those guys that just left, you were able to save like $6,000 or something, right?
yeah, we wouldn't have to put them back through the process.
Yeah, every time we hire somebody, you know, we have the most stringent hiring process of any department in the village. And, you know, and that starts with a polygraph and a mental evaluation to make sure that they're stable to even do the job. You know, once they get through that, then you're looking at, you know, starting through an FTO program that can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months. You know, so you're paying them that entire time, but they're not able to go out and just answer calls like all the other officers. Then you have to uniform them. So, you know, between bulletproof vest, you know, uniforms for both winter and summer and all that, you know, by the time that's done, you're looking at about around $3,000 per officer before they're ready to go out on the road. And if you get one that, like we just had, that went through the whole process and turned around and leaves, you're out $3,000.
I know there was some talk that you guys were working 14, 17 hours shifts to try to cover.
We had an officer that had a strep. It was like, actually, I believe it was the weekend right before we had that meeting. We had an officer that was out with strep. And I believe Captain Staggs and Sergeant Green, they split the weekend up and ended up working. You worked, what, 17 hours straight? And Jesse did 14 or something like that, 15?
But what we're facing is with no part-time officers, full-timers have to work more than their shifts are designed for. At some point in time, some of them may like it. They get paid overtime. Some may say, no, I'd rather be home with my family. But at some point in time, someone will either get burned out or they've worked a little too hard. They miss something or they are not alert enough. So we're trying to alleviate that issue.
Don't they figure after 10 hours, it's just time wasted, that you're not alert, you're not paying attention, you're just You know, I think
Surviving.
10's like,
Yeah, I think that's why law enforcement, I think it's like 12 is a threshold, like
Mhm.
that's it. But yeah, you know, and when you get officers that are working, you know, if we have one that wants to take 2 vacation days, okay, well, now we need somebody to work 2 overtime days just to give that person 2 vacation days. And, you know, when you do that, it's okay for a while, but then they get wore down, they get burnt out. Well, statistics show that when officers are burnt out and they're wore out, use of forces go up. So, you know, that's a concern too. You know, you could have the best officer, the most patient officer, but, you know, we all know when you're running on 2-3 hours of sleep because you had court all day and you've worked 3 days of overtime, you know, sometimes your fuse is a lot shorter.
So what this would entail would probably be about an additional, I think Natalie said they 20 to 35,000 more dollars would have to be expended towards the police department. Right now, we have from our income tax fund, when we went to the extra 0.5%, 50% of that goes right into the general fund. And Natalie was assuring me that the money can be found if we want to use it. That's the question that everyone has in front of the council here today, is if that's something they wish to pursue.
I'm also working on the temporary budget for next year, and right now I'm including that in there. So once I get that completed and me and Natalie both go over it, and we feel that the numbers are good, I can forward that to all of you, just so you kind of know what we're looking at next year.
I mean, I'm not sure if we can't get part-timers. What do you do? I mean, we want them on the street, and I want 2 on the street all the time. I've always said that. And I mean, I don't know that we have a choice.
And it'd be upfront, like even with this, I don't want to exploit when we would have to do it. I mean, afterwards, I would be more than happy to explain how I would do the schedule but there could be situations where we still have one, but it's going to drastically minimize when we do it, and we can control when that happens. So, you know, statistically I looked, and there's a specific time that we were less likely to have calls. So we would focus on that time if we had to, but it would be a last resort. That would be just to minimize the overtime we would use. You know, there may be situations where we still need to use overtime to cover, but it'd be very little.
Chief, didn't you say that this hire would be one that would kind of float in the system, where they'd be utilized wherever the need was on particular weeks or days? Is that
It would
correct?
mainly take place whenever somebody was on a vacation or extended leave, whatever that might be. Other than that, they would pretty much be in a normal rotation, but we have that ability, and they would know coming in that if we get in that situation, they're going to be the one that's going to be adjusted. Now, everybody will be adjusted a little bit depending on where, you know, if somebody calls in sick, you know, we may be calling somebody, hey, come in at this time rather than this time, you know, just so we know we have the coverage, like he said, during the times that we are the most needed.
You know, at the end of the year, comp time, you have to use so much of it or it disappears. Is that correct? Or you get paid out?
It's, you're allowed to carry 40 over. It can't disappear because it's hours worked. Vacation time's another story. If you haven't used your vacation, that's gone.
But if you don't use the comp time, you get paid out on it, correct?
So it costs us money either way. So if you you know, whether you're taking the time off or you're getting paid at the end of the year, one way or another, somebody's getting paid. So.
Comments?
I would make 2 real quick, Dale, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So first of all, I mean, obviously, when you're considering voting, due diligence, and research, et cetera. But I will say that if this feels a little experimental because it's different from what we tried, one of the things, these are summaries, and we had like a 90-minute long meeting on this, and it really, sometimes you miss some of the nuance of this. One of the cool things I heard was that there are other departments that are attempting things. Williamsburg, and one other we were discussing. And my point in being is that if this feels new or different, the good news is there's actually models out there for this is actually kind of I don't want to say tried and true, but it's definitely not something that we're flying by the seat of our pants on. There's numbers out there to show that things like this have value. It's just
The
something
larger
to-
departments,
Well,
none of them have part-time, do they? It's just something we've done and now it's not available.
yeah. And the second thing I would like to just say is really appreciate the ton of work that was done on this. I mean, this is one tiny little thing, and this is like what, like 50 hours worth of number crunching, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So thank you guys and the other members of your department for putting this together to help us make an accurate decision, because without all of this mess, it's hard to know how to decide. So thank you for that.
I mean, you gotta crunch the numbers, because I'm looking at this like it's my own, but I mean, it is my budget, but my own household budget too. I want to spend as little money as I possibly can to get the best product.
It's a lot of work to do that.
Getting part-time help in years past wasn't as difficult as it is now. And even when you have them, they had these two that were here. They can only work certain days because they may be doing other jobs on a different occasion. They may only be available on weekends or after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, things like that. So by having the extra officer full-time, that person floats.
Well, and I was talking to a gentleman that teaches at the UC Police Academy. Actually, he emailed us, and he's the chief of one of the departments. They're looking at doing away with part-time and just focus on full-time. And he said right now they only have 7 guys in the academy, and 6 already have full-time jobs. When my son went to UC Police Academy, I think they had like 30. So it's and that's within 5 years. It's taken a drastic drop.
Even these departments, like I was talking about, that just, their pay is ridiculous. Those places would get, at one time we get 200 and some applicants. Now they're lucky if they get 25, 30,
And we do not have a police academy local like we've had in years past. The vocational school always had some. And Chief, you were part of that. Captain, I
had a fairly large class, and they can't even get enough together anymore to even do a class.
Captain, you weren't out in this one. You were at another one, or were you out here as well? And they had it every year. They'd always have 15 or 20 in it, but they disbanded that, about 5 years ago? Yeah. So it's, the nearest one is probably what, Scarlet Oaks or Great Oaks? Yeah.
Then state has one too.
Oh, do they?
Mhm.
Right. So it's thin picking out there at the moment. So if we were to go to a full-time officer, how hard do you think would that be to fill?
There's a good chance we might be able to get back somebody that left. But even if not, you say full-time and there's gonna be people knocking on the door. So
Would it be wrong if you were to commit to a full-time or have a person commit full-time, and if they leave early, like within less than a year, you just make them?
we've actually discussed that with
Okay.
the solicitor about writing something up that they would have to sign off on whenever they came on.
What happens if they leave early? I mean, I understand if you pay for training, they have to commit to so long. If they don't have to
It would
pay it
basically,
Just
I think a lot of places
monetary.
depends on when they leave.
Mhm.
Like if they, obviously if they get to the end, they don't owe us anything. But if they leave at certain points, they're going to owe us X amount. I think it's a certain percentage depending on when you leave. Yeah.
They have
Yeah,
to pay
that's pay
money.
back.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
It's a clawback. We can do that. They are. Several communities are, not just them.
My loans were erased when I
Well, I mean, if you're shorthanded, you're going to do something about it.
saved my.
I know, just like over the road trucking, you can only ride 14 hours. You gotta be off 10. So, I mean, you guys are already wearing yourselves out. So,
Well, would is there opposition to this? Or is there enough information for people to make a decision on something like this? Right now, with the 2 part-timers gone, now they're at a critical mass as far as now the comp time's starting to build up, overtime's going to start to build up. We'll have less, I'm sorry?
We have the holidays coming too.
Yeah. So it's, It's up to this council as to whether they want to endorse that idea of another officer.
I would make the motion to go ahead and add the additional officer to the police force as proposed.
We have a motion by Kelly to that effect. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Nancy. Let's do a roll call.
Kelly Campbell, Kelly Cornett,
Yes.
Pink,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you all, council. I'm sure the chief and captain wish to thank you as well. Let them do that themselves. But this will plug a large hole in the hours worked and the money that's spent. So, chief, you and the captain have your work cut out for you now in trying to. Can this be effective as of today, Joe?
Yeah, but I'm sure the chief's going to tell you it takes months. If we get someone, we've got to bring up to speed and get equipped if they're not familiar.
If it's not somebody we already have vetted, then we would have to take
Right.
them through the
But
process.
Background
it
check.
can happen as early as they deem necessary.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Dale?
Yes.
Just as you wish. So I had something at a roundtable that comes out of this ESC meeting. Would you want to do it now or want to do it at a roundtable? I don't care.
We can do it now if you
It's
wish.
just the timing of it.
This is fine.
All right, okay. So hopefully this will be a fairly quick item. This is something that Art and I had discussed. And I'd sent an email to the council members already. It was late, it was yesterday, so I don't know if you had time to read it, but there was the email I'd sent about the possible adoption of Cortico. I don't know if anybody got a chance to check that out. Okay, because the more you saw it, the less I have to talk about it. That's what I'm getting at. But specifically for Bank and for Kelly, because maybe you have not spent as much time with this. Cortico is a service that we can get. It's the same people as Lexipol. If you've been hearing about Chief and Captain working through Lexipol to get the legal aspects of their job to the next level. Cortico is a wellness program that I strongly endorse, and I'm bringing to the council tonight to get a vote of approval. If so, Art could go ahead and work on that as soon as possible. What Cortico is it is a entire suite of materials from mental health counseling to workout programs to marriage counseling, peer counseling. It's essentially designed to take some of the hardest jobs that we have in our community and make it a little bit more safer, a little bit more recoverable for the people who are doing it. Cortico has committed to a $3,000 fee to cover the entire village employees, but that also covers their families, and it also covers retirees from our program. So retired Chief Coburn, for example, qualifies. Children of staff members qualify. And I've done extensive research on this and actually gone through what they have. Basically what they do is they create the whole program. Every member of the village gets an app on their phone that is designed specifically for Georgetown. It is not generic. It is designed for us. And then you have instant access to help whenever you need it of almost any kind. The really cool news on this is that it will cover something that we don't have covered insurance-wise. We will get money back insurance-wise a lot. It can even sometimes be a positive cash flow for us. In other words, this costs us $3,000, but we might get more than that back from insurance. I wasn't able to, it's not my job to have access to the insurance numbers here. But when I was talking to the Cortico people, they said it often happens. At any rate, I could and would be happy to explain a ton more about this. I just think I would also say that, and I'm looking at Chief Freeland and Captain Staggs here for come on, Jeremy, the Group 5 category for the Ohio Collaborative. Doesn't it check that box for, yeah. So to try to avoid the jargon, endorsement that our department would really, really like to have and has been working towards. This checks a major box towards that. I'm also going to just be honest with you. We're talking about trying to get that 9th officer and get a new employee in here. It's a perk. It's maybe something, hopefully something that would be enticing to people who are coming to considering working at Georgetown. So I can answer questions. I could talk for hours about this, but what I would really like to do is at some point this evening, get a vote of approval on this so Art could know to move forward and get this locked in.
We have a little bit of this in our health plan, but nowhere near the capacity that this program has. This is a great program that could benefit so many people, not just the employees that are in here, but like Jeremy said, their families, the retirees from our group that could benefit from a lot of these sessions, that they can talk to someone on the phone, whether it's for mental health, whether it's issues they're going through. And Chief, I think you had some comments, or maybe it was you, Captain Staggs, a couple of months ago in regard to this particular program, Cortico. But
Checks the box because to be part of the collaborative, mental health wellness is something you have to have in place, some type of resource for your officers. And this
recommendation was for you to gravitate towards the collaborative. So this goes hand in hand.
That will open up, there's actually a grant that I would love to go for right now, and I did a webinar for it the other day, and the first thing out of their mouth was, you already have to be part of the collaborative, which once we have our Lexipol stuff in place and all that, we will be, but we are not yet. So
comments in regards to Cortico. And who is it? Jeremy, tell us who Cortico is.
Okay, so Cortico is it's a company that is staffed, run by former people in the fire EMS police profession. These are people who, the whole point of this is that they know what these guys are going through way more than we ever could. And I found out about it because a guy I know who is a police chief, and he has vetted this inside and out. And these people obviously think of all the things that we could never think of because they are, that's what I said.
They are the future of wellness for high stress professions.
And they know it because they've lived through it. I mean, if you want me to, I could try to write you up a nice program, but I don't live your life. So yeah, but these guys do, absolutely. And yeah, what Lexipol is to legal stuff, Cortico is to.
Yeah, who helps us write ours is retired chiefs and people that's been in that profession. That's kind of what Cortico is. Same people, but on the mental health side.
And they will come in and work with our departments to set everything up. It's completely individualized and personalized.
In fact, Lexipol has a site on the Cortico website here too, so.
I think technically they're separate, but they're also together under the
once you
same.
log in, you can access any of those things that are, you can get Cortico, you can get our Police One Academy, the policy manual itself, it'll all be a one-stop shop. So.
This is good for first responders of any type, whether it's police, fire, EMS. Chief Rocky, you probably have witnessed people that are on the scene that are unaccustomed to seeing something tragic there that really eats away at their soul. So this would be something that if they wanted to, they could contact people there as well. I sound like a commercial, but
And I think the big benefit to that is we had a major incident not too long ago, and Joey had arranged with some individuals to come down. They were fantastic. They were from Cincinnati Fire.
Yeah. Fire and UC.
Yeah, and you get those groups, and everybody's just kind of awkwardly sitting there. But this would be somewhere where if they're by themselves, they may reach out and have that one-on-one.
Thoughts or comments from Jeremy's proposal?
Be clear, it's 3,000 yearly, right?
3,000 yearly, and that's going to cover all village employees, which includes what I mean, everybody has stress in their profession, but what I consider to be the high stress professions, but also water, utilities, everybody and family and retired, but 3,000 a year, yes. But also that's the outlay. The net certainly will be way less when we factor in how much we get back from insurance. And it could, for many municipalities, it's zero.
Why do we get one back from insurance?
They can rebate you, not rebate, but it may make the cost of our insurance go down because we have this program. Yeah.
Essentially, this program makes us less likely to file insurance claims because we've got things in place that prevent them meeting those insurance claims, is the thought anyways. Mhm.
So do we need a motion?
But we would need a motion if this is something that we wish to adopt. Okay, Bink makes the motion to adopt Cortico as part of our process. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Kelly Cornett. If you'll do a roll call, please, Brian.
Kelly Campbell.
Yes.
Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Bink.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes,
Jeremy.
Yes.
Okay, very
it's a
good.
heck of a deal for that
Okay.
price.
Chairman, does that mean you have nothing to say in roundtable discussion?
Oh, you would be so lucky, wouldn't you, my friend? Actually, one only thing I have to say is super short.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's continue on with our general business. On page 8 is the meetings from our special session of council. And if there are questions again in regards to that, we could ask them now. And
We need to approve that.
do we need to approve this? Okay. If you've read this and there are no further action or questions on that, we would need a motion to approve.
I so move.
By Jeremy, do we have a second?
I'll second.
By Nancy, let's do roll call on it as well.
Kelly Campbell.
Yes.
Kelly Cornett.
Didn't you have to
Yes.
read it?
Bink.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
Might start mixing it up again.
There you go. Okay, we're getting a little redundant now. On page 9 is a review of the August 30th CDC committee meeting minutes. You guys are meeting all the time, so is there any questions in regard to that meeting? If there are none, that's for yourself to review. You can approach any of those council members for that. So on page 10 is the September 7th HR committee meeting minutes. And if there's anyone that wishes to discuss that, they can at this point in time. If not, feel free to contact any of those council members for any clarification or information that you may wish from them. Okay, on page 11 is a supplemental appropriation. And Joey, I think this is dealing with you. Do you wish to make some comment about that on page 11?
Yeah, so we were, if you remember back, the first of the year, you approved funds to hire a grant writer to go after some funding for us. And we were awarded the AFG Assistance to Firefighters grant in the amount of $91,066.66. So what that is for is to basically replace all of our extrication equipment, our rescue equipment, are the high pressure airbags that we use. We bought them in 1994, so they're a little out of their life cycle, if you will. All the extrication tools we use are hydraulics, and the new standard is everything's battery operated, which alleviates that need to constantly fool with the gas motors and make sure they're running and keep them running. And you know how aggravating those things can be when you're mixing fuel and things. So anyway, so we have a $5,000 match. It's just under $5,000 that we have to put in for it. But FEMA is picking up the $91,000. So
This $91,000 is for us to pre-fund this until the grant dollars come in. So it will be replaced back into the fund itself. So in order for that, this is an ordinance for us to approve. So Kelly, would you want to read this by title only, please?
An ordinance making a supplemental appropriation for the Village of Georgetown, Brown County, Ohio.
Any questions or comments? If there being none, then we would entertain a motion to adopt. Motion by Nancy. Do we have a second? By Kelly Campbell. Brian, if you do a roll call, please.
Kelly Campbell. Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Pink.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
That's 1353.
We've already covered the I on page for the construction bid. On page 13 of your packet is a resolution for the termination of a community reinvestment area in our community. And first of all, we probably need to read it by title only, Kelly.
A resolution terminating the community reinvestment area agreement with Oglethorpe of Georgetown LLC.
We'll have Solicitor Braun comment on this.
As you may be aware, this is something that Administrator Owens put in motion. We had entered into a CRA agreement with Oglethorpe, the behavioral hospital out at the site of the old Brown County Hospital. And as a process, when we entered into that agreement, we established certain benchmarks they had to meet for hiring and the creation of jobs in order for us to give them certain tax abatements. We have put them on notice to no avail that they're not meeting those benchmarks, and they're well behind meeting those benchmarks. So they're getting a complete tax abatement on that property, and we are recommending, well, administration is recommending that we terminate that agreement with them for breach. We did put them on notice and did not hear back from them. We sent their statutory agent notice of this, and we sent a copy to their corporate offices. So it's our recommendation that we terminate this. If you do decide to do so, we would give notice to the county auditor, who would adjust their taxes, and we would also notify the school district, who also will see an increase in revenue as a result of this. But remember this, when we give tax incentives, I know a lot of people question those. When we give businesses tax incentives, we always attach to it requirements. It's not as if it's just something they get and it's a freebie. You know, because you read these agreements and you see the details, that we require certain things be brought back to us. And I can just tell you, if you look at the legislation, they are well behind the 250 jobs, that they should be at. So it would be our recommendation that we go ahead and terminate that agreement at this time.
Any questions?
Is it appropriate to ask what they're in breach of contract of, or the hiring,
Yeah.
Is it appropriate to ask that?
Well, I mean, as I could read it, it says in the legislation that they were to have 27 new full-time jobs originally, and then when they opened, and within 6 months, there were to be 100 jobs. And
so it's just straight up number of.
yeah,
Okay.
then they were to have 250 by now. They're nowhere near the 250 employees.
Gotcha.
And these were actually numbers they put in the agreement. We sent information to them and said, please provide us with what you'll do. So they haven't met that. This is common in a lot of other communities I represent. If places either aren't meeting payroll, sometimes you tie it to payroll. If they're not meeting payroll, or they aren't meeting hiring numbers or building requirements, then you can terminate this. So.
Any other questions? If this is something you wish to approve, then we would need a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Kelly Campbell to revoke the Community Reinvestment Area Agreement with Oglethorpe. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Kelly Cornett. Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Kelly Campbell. Kelly Cornett.
Yes.
Pink.
Yes.
Nancy.
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
It's 1345.
Very good. The last resolution is on page 15. This is a Public Works Commission. The administrator is asking for authority to approach our funding sources, Ohio Public Works, for additional funding for our water main replacement project on going up Mount Orem Pike. So again, Kelly, if you would read this by title only.
A resolution authorizing the village administrator to prepare and submit an application to participate in the Ohio Public Works Commission State Capital Improvement and/or local transportation improvement programs related to the Mount Orb Pike Water Main Replacement Project and to execute all related contracts.
Okay. Any questions in relation to this project? Any opposition for him to try to find more money? Don't think that's appropriate, so we would need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
By Kelly Cornett, do we have a second? Nancy, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Kelly Campbell, Kelly Cornett,
Yes.
Bink,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
It's 1346.
What isn't in your packet was a handout to you at the beginning. I think Brian handed it out to everybody. There's an ordinance and a resolution that we need to try to approve. And one is the creating of a port authority. We did do this by vote in council last time, but it wasn't in the form of an ordinance. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, Jason Hammond reached out to us. We should have a written document under the ORC actually creating the Port Authority. That's good policy and it's required. The second one, while not required, I think is also a good policy, is when you all did a voice vote to appoint individuals, while you can do it that way, it's better to have a document where you appoint them. And one of the things we cleaned up on this, and I believe someone from council actually asked this question, which is what were the terms going to be? You'll note that the terms are staggered to match the dates that we had described to you, how there are certain ones that would trail off at different times so that you keep that institutional history. So Jason prepared the information that's in the legislation, and then I prepared the legislation to match it. So you're really just affirming votes you actually already took.
So Kelly, if you would read the ordinance creating the Port Authority, please.
An ordinance creating a port authority within the village of Georgetown pursuant to Chapter 4582 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency.
Any questions or comments?
One additional comment. The reason that we did it as an emergency, I know people like to ask that, is that Jason is actually working on a potential project right now for the Port Authority and would like to be able to keep doing that and make sure the paperwork's formalized before he enters into any kind of even tentative agreement.
Okay, pressure's on. So do we have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
I'll make the motion.
By Nancy, do we have a second?
Second.
By Kelly Cornett? Okay. If you would do a roll call vote, please, Brian.
Kelly Campbell, Kelly Cornett,
Yes.
Bink,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
and Jeremy.
Yes.
It's 1354.
Okay, Kelly, do we have a resolution to be read by title only, please?
A resolution appointing the members of the Board of Directors of the Village of Georgetown Port Authority.
As you can see in there, and I'll do it over live mic here, the members that are being serving us on the Port Authority are Kevin Kratzer, Heather Kidwell, Jason Bowman, David Wint, Edward Wood, Thomas Mays, and Kelly Cornett. So we had a voice vote on this, I believe, probably a month ago. So again, this is just reaffirming those. These were my appointments to put on here. You gave approval at that time. I see no reason why not to approve them in this manner either. So we will entertain a motion to adopt. By Kelly Cornett, or excuse me, Kelly Newberry, or Kelly Campbell. There's just too many Kellys around anymore. My brother-in-law's Kelly Jones, but I can't drag him into that, so. Okay, we have Kelly Campbell making that motion. Do we have a second? By Bink. Again, let's do a roll call vote.
Kelly Campbell,
Yes.
Kelly Cornett,
Yes.
Bink,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Jeremy.
Yes.
1347.
Very good. You want to send this off to Jason? Does he need a copy of this?
Frank.
Brian, if you can send
I'm
it.
just glad to see them down here with their terms because sometimes that gets lost and
Okay.
we have trouble finding who, on what terms they are in there. So it's very clear and nice.
Okay, we'll move on. On page 16 of your packet is your payment listings. And we can do our best to try to figure out what is what. we can probably, between the chief, the two chiefs and myself, we can probably come up with a good answer anyway.
Number 49427, is it Fuji's Diesel Service?
Diesel.
Chief, that's yours.
Yeah, that was to replace the diesel exhaust system on our ambulance. Yeah, that diesel, that's DEF fluid, diesel exhaust fluid or something. It's basically a pollution control, and it went bad, and so we had to put a new one on it. And he's from down around Bethel, and he was really the only person I could find to work on it. People don't like working on Power Stroke diesels, but kudos to him, because I called him on like a Wednesday because the squad was out of service. I called him at like noon and asked him if he'd be interested, because I called all the Ford dealerships around and nobody wanted to work on it, ironically enough. But he was like, "Oh, can you get it here by 1:30?" So, I took it down there, and in 2 days he had it done. And, when I finally got to meet him, he said, he puts an emphasis on fire and EMS to get them in and out. And so,
You want to pull your mic down?
Sorry, but but kudos to him for getting us in and out. But it was very expensive. But what can you do? So,
Any other questions in regards to the bill payment listing? If there's some here that you look at later, you can always call our fiscal officer and she can pinpoint anything on there. Okay, we will go on to the fund summary report on page 18. If there's any questions about them. And Joe, I do have several questions in regards to this. So I'm going to put you to the task. There are 4 things on here that I think could stand some clarification. We've probably talked about them in the past. But one is the Drug Law Enforcement Fund. We have $75,000 in that. So Chief, I don't know whether that's something you're familiar with, that fund. It's a 2081. Or is that just for training officers for drug arrests, apprehension, and
It's basically anything that is paid for out of that fund has to be linked back to drug enforcement in some way, shape, or form.
so
Whether that's equipment, training, whatever that might be.
and this is part of everything that's in mayor's court goes into this, a certain percentage of the intake from mayor. And of course, it's 75,000 beginning of the year, and now we're at 73, so we've used a couple of $1,000. Is there any other way that money can be utilized?
We've been creative through the years, but I would have to probably sit down with the solicitor and Natalie to see how far we can stretch
It might be a
that.
good idea if we could find a way of
It
stretching.
builds up, and then what ends up happening is Rob will find something creative. I remember a few years ago you found something. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, we will find some program, and then we'll do it. The other thing that you're pointing out is also the ARPA funds, and that's also something that, again, it's limited what you can spend it on, but we have till the end of this year to designate it, and we have until 2024 to spend it.
Is that something we can use towards our water building?
I'm not sure the answer
I'm
to
not-
that,
I
but
don't
I
wanna
know
put you
you
on the
cannot use it for rolling stock, meaning
For
vehicles.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'm sure they'd be wanting to buy police cars and fire trucks.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about that, but that's something we can check.
Okay.
That might be an approved project.
And then we have the merchant bank TIF. We have $14,800, and we can be a little creative with that. Is that correct? Is
We
that,
can be very creative with
that
that.
could be some money that could be used towards this full-time officer, because that officer will be patrolling this thing. So we could actually get some of that money from that particular account, or does it have to be?
Now, that's a little
certain-
different. We cannot use TIF money for salary of police and fire.
Okay.
However, we can use it for other things, and as you know, then that's money you
That
otherwise.
alleviates some of
That's
their-
right.
Okay.
So yes, TIF revenue is something we have a lot of flexibility on, and that's something that is a budget decision.
Okay. Then we have unclaimed funds. What can we use unclaimed funds? There's only about $2,800 in it, but is that something after such amount of time
Yes.
that it just gets
It gets
dumped into the general
correct.
fund?
That's right.
Okay.
If
All
it's
right.
unclaimed.
All right. I've asked all my questions. Anyone else have any questions about the line items? If not, we have our payment register detail on page 19 for the credit card. And again, pretty self-explanatory. Some of it's been for training, some of it's been for travel expenses, gasoline. On page 21 of your packet is the bank reconciliation statement. Kelly is our bank guru in here. If you have any comments, you can do so now. But it balances out to the penny. Also, on page 22 is our mayor's court report. Mayor's court is up from last year. Chief, do you have anything to attribute that to?
I will say that my officers have been very active. And, it's both a good thing and a bad thing because we're getting more funds in here, but it also means people are breaking the law. So, but yes, the officers have been very vigilant.
Any questions about mayor's court? If not, Chief, you have a police report.
Jeremy, can I get the projector?
Yeah. Let's see. So you just need me off of it, right? Oh, that's because I've got it frozen. I'm sorry.
Going on, we've got our nature statistics for which is basically the type of calls we went on in August. You can see there was 484 of those and 133 different types of offenses that the officers dealt with in August. And I'm going to try to get connected to the projector. Let's see.
I'm sorry, Rob. I thought I could work around this, and nothing was working.
While I'm trying to get that done, a few things of interest. On August the 6th of this year at around 9:20 a.m., officers Chase Pendleton and Kyle Luther responded to the United Dairy Farmers for a report of possible drug activity in the bathroom. Upon their arrival, officers were advised the woman had been in the bathroom for over an hour, and they could hear what sounded like a lighter going on and off repeatedly through the door. The woman had exited the restroom at this point and was walking around the store. Officer Pendleton checked the restroom and located a hypodermic needle inside a cabinet with residue still inside. Upon contact with the suspect, she denied that the needle belonged to her, but did advise that there was marijuana in her vehicle. Upon search of the vehicle, numerous items were located, including marijuana cigarettes, a pipe, along with straws that she advised to use to snort her prescriptions. The woman has been charged with possession of marijuana and drug paraphernalia. Let's see, 6-4, 7-4. And let's see, August 9th at around 1:45 a.m., Sergeant Green and Patrolman Colin Blevins responded to Elm Street in reference to a report of a man running and yelling down the street. Upon arrival, Sergeant Green located a man sitting on his knees in a yard, yelling and speaking incoherently. The subject was able to give his name, but the other information was incoherent. The subject kept passing out, and the life squad was contacted. Until the squad arrived, officers struggled to keep the man awake and alert. He admitted to drug use and was transported to the hospital to be stabilized. He has been charged with disorderly conduct through county court in hopes of taking him through county court will also force him into drug treatment. The subject's name is being withheld at this time due to pending prosecution. Let's see, on August 10th at 11 a.m., Patrolman Luther and Chase Pendleton and I responded to Blair Avenue for a report of a possible burglary in progress. with the owner of the property currently being incarcerated. Upon arrival, officers made contact with one male who was taken into custody. He advised that several other subjects were inside, but upon search, no one else was located. There was evidence of drug use inside, which was seized. The male, whose name is being held at this time, has been charged with burglary and possession of drugs. This is kind of more of a public announcement. We've had, over the past several months, we've had an unusually high amount of bicycles stolen. I mainly just want people to be vigilant. I know, we live in a rural community. People are used to, being able to leave things in their yards, things like that. But unfortunately, these kids, they go home at night, they leave the bike laying in the yard, and they come out in the morning and it's gone. And that's happening quite a bit. So just asking that people take that extra step to make sure their items are secured. Another issue we've been dealing with a lot here in the last few months is problems with juveniles. There have been, I just want to remind the parents out there that Georgetown has a curfew for those under 18 years of age. If out past 10 p.m., juveniles will be taken into custody and their parents will be charged for the curfew violation. Officers have received several, this is something that happened over here in the last few weeks. Officers have received their annual firearm and taser certification. They also received updated CPR training from Fire Chief Rocky. Another positive note, you may have seen on our Facebook page that Parker's Pizza, every year they do a 9/11 fundraiser, and they always take whatever profits that they made that day, and they split that with both the fire department and the police department. So this year, they donated to both of us individually $1,611.81. They have always been very generous. There's our photo we took out front there. And the other thing that I have here, this is a little prep project of Kyle Luther. This is basically a contest that's going on in Ohio, a photo contest. We have this on our Facebook page as well. A few people have gotten confused on how you vote on this, but you can see our photo there, which we did next to Mr. Eicholtz's building. Luther took that picture. And as you can see, these are actually in the order that we are placing. So right now, we are in 5th place. So just ask that people take the time. You're allowed to vote once every 24 hours. Our current number is 286, with Blanchester leading with 821 and Mount Auburn a close second. So I know this is something that Kyle was very excited about. So if we could come in the top 3, that'd be great. So.
And Rob, it was very confusing with how you vote.
Yes,
And,
you actually you hover over the photo.
okay.
And you click on the heart.
Okay. Yeah.
Is how you do it. And
Sometimes it'll come up with a little thing that says vote and you click on it.
yeah, I think some people clicked on that and they ended up voting for another department. But
that happens.
Click on the heart. Okay.
yes, and
The one category 5, Rob?
yes, if you go to our Facebook page, there's
Yeah.
actually already a link on there, and that'll take you straight to our category. So that's actually how I got to that page that I was just on.
If you don't have Facebook, can
Say,
you
for
still,
example,
You can actually just go to just Google the lightohioblue.org. Actually, I don't even think you have to put the .org in if you just Google it. So, and that's another. And if you do go there, we are in category 5. I didn't think about that. I do. Do you remember? You do not have Facebook, so.
over a minute ago, sorry.
Lexapol is we're getting very close to being able to do our initial releases to the officers. So that's going to be done as we get each step done. So the officers they're not getting it all dumped on them at once. So there will be the first round of that coming out here I'm hoping within the next month. They already left, but I wanted to thank the National Night Out crew for coming in and presenting the plaque. One other good thing on positive today, earlier today, we brightened a little DJ Barrows. Yeah, this is his 18th birthday. He's always wanted to be a cop, and as you can see, he's got his own cop uniform there and everything. And actually, he rode with us in the parade, the fair parade. I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago. But it really made his day. So other than that, I don't have anything.
Any questions for the chief?
What's the curfew again?
10 p.m.
For
anybody under 18, unless they're obviously with an adult,
anyone
their
under
parents.
18.
Correct.
Anything else for chief? We'll then transition to Chief Rocky.
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate about the grant, the $91,000 grant we got. If you recall, Art was able to secure a grant in the amount of $15,000 earlier this year for a new gear extractor. And I was also awarded a $15,000 equipment grant through the state fire marshal's office, and then the $1,200 seatbelt grant. So this year we were just under $123,000 in grants, which will all go, toward equipment and things. So I was pretty happy about that. We'll keep applying every year, and hopefully now that we got one of the AFG grants, hopefully it just, they've got our bugs in their computer, so whatever.
I think you said, or Art said on Facebook, now it's a ladder truck. Is that the next one?
Yeah, we've applied for that for 2 years in a row, and that's kind of wishful thinking, if you will. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. So, but I was happy with the $91,000 because our extrication equipment was getting quite old and outdated. So that'll help a lot with our budget. That doesn't have to come out. So
Is our old equipment, do we just dispose of it or can we donate?
to be honest with you, I'm gonna keep it and we can continue to use it. I'll just put it on another piece of apparatus. And, in the event that, that you need it, it's always there. If we were to have a major traffic accident and needed it or whatever, we would still have it. I'm going to hang on to it because it's not like it doesn't work. It's just, it's just getting some time on it. The airbags, we'll probably dispose of those just because they're 20 years old and they're getting to the point to where, you get those things are high pressure. And the last thing you want to do is risk one of those bursting and taking somebody out. But the actual jaws of life, we'll hang on to them and put them on another piece of apparatus. As to reiterate what Chief Freeland said, all the village employees, with the exception of electric department, they get theirs through one of their vendors, but came up and we did a CPR. We certified everybody in CPR. So all the girls, the police officers, street department, and all that are CPR certified. So I was real happy that, everybody was, participated in that, because everybody here's busy, but they took time out of their day and we came in here and did it. So kudos to all of them. Lexapol, we're just kind of on Rob's shirt tails, but we're about to start rolling out some of the policies. We're going to do it in increments so we don't inundate the guys with all this reading and signing off on it. But my proctor and I, we meet twice a week and do it. So we're real close to start rolling it out, and he's about ready to turn me loose on my own. So it's a little scary, but we'll get through it. We have fair coming up. So I'm meeting next week with the fire chiefs, and hopefully they're able to pick up some of the details down there to lighten our load, because we are responsible for transporting anybody off the grounds that needs transported to the hospital. There is an EMS booth that you can go to, but if you need transported, it falls on our responsibility. So that week's usually really, really busy. So hopefully the neighboring departments help us out like they have in the past. I want to thank Wade and Lori Highlander for their donation once again this year. They're very, very generous, and it's nice to have those folks in our community. One other thing I wanted to talk about was the COVID policy we have. A few weeks ago, COVID got me and I was down for a few days. And when I turned my pay sheet in to Natalie, she said the COVID policy had expired. So I had to use sick time. And I would probably encourage council to look at that because we have seen an influx in COVID patients needing transported to the hospital. So it's probably making a rebound and, but not that it's a huge deal to use a few sick days, but the timing of it, it's like, I just feel like that for 3 years, if somebody got COVID, they didn't have to use their sick time. It was a COVID policy. And just because my dumb luck, I caught it, 6 months after policy expired that I had to use sick days. So a few days is not a lot, but when you're old as me and worn down as I am, I might need those sick days one of these days. So.
It's actually something I was going to bring up tonight.
Okay.
I talked to Kelly about it and to Art. And
Okay.
So-
I'm sorry. I didn't realize that, but
If we
No,
adopted,
that's-
if we adopted a new COVID policy, could we make it retroactive back to when the other one expired, Joe?
Yeah, that's something we can talk about.
Okay, very good.
that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief? Okay. We'll go to our roundtable discussion right now. Nancy?
Well, he took the COVID that I was going to talk about. The straw bales are in and they will be out next week on the streets being decorated. They have to be decorated by Friday, next Friday. And so hopefully we've got 20 of them this year. So last year we had like 7 or 8. So we've really had a great and a lot of really creative, neat ideas that I'm hearing about. I wanted to give Joey congrats to the fire department for the grant. And I wanted to thank Art and especially Travis for doing such a great job and being so diligent in his job in the last couple of weeks. We really appreciate that.
Anything else?
That's it.
Jared?
Yeah, I have 2 things. First, quick announcement to the people out there, based on a question that somebody brought up. This is gas aggregation, about businesses versus individual homes for gas aggregation. To boil it down, gas aggregation is for residential locations only, but that's defined by usage. And so a business asked me if they qualified because they were what the cutoff was. The cutoff is 5,000 cubic feet. So if you are a very small business, you might actually qualify. And I'm encouraging you to look and see if you get those notifications from Duke, because if you're listed as a business, that's not actually what the qualification is, it's the usage. I'm also encouraged to tell you that if you are a business above that amount, Jay, who is working with us on this project, can work with you to find discounts that are outside gas aggregation, but still that he can work some magic with. So if you are a business that is not qualifying for gas ag, please get a hold of me about possibilities if you're interested for possible savings that are on the side of that. And then, I promise to keep it short, Dale. This is very, very short. I would move that we would go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 12122G1 to consider the employment of a public employee and to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public official, and 12122G2 to consider the sale of property.
Do we wish to do that now or finish our roundtable first?
Oh,
We could finish roundtable.
Sure.
Okay, just hold that if you would, and we'll come right back to
I
you.
will,
Have to read it again.
I take that back. None of that should happen now.
That's all right. Kelly?
My only thing is I was approached earlier this week by someone that lives on Main Street that seemed a little frustrated with the project that's going on up there and had some questions and really was targeting the village as kind of the factor in why this project is taking so long and why the streets are so in havoc, if you will. And I was hoping, Joe, maybe I could turn to you a little bit. I know we've had some issues with the company that's doing the job. And I know that, I guess I was wondering, do we have any legal backing or anything that we are taking a look at with that project, or where do we stand with it?
In the absence of the administrator being here, I can update you that, yes, we've had some problems with the water project that's going on Main Street. We have reached out to the contractor about that. And I can tell you that the administrator and the mayor, to some extent, have had conversations about it with the company and with individuals. At the moment, we've been assured by the contractor that they're going to redo work that they did not do correctly, and that they're going to ensure that the work is performed pursuant to our contract. So assuming that they perform the work in the way that the contract requires and that we contracted with them to do, it would be my hope that that would be the end of the matter. If what I can tell you is that in the event that they don't complete the project pursuant to the specifications, obviously we can pursue legal action against them. But it is my understanding that at this time, the contractor has agreed to go back, redo areas that were not done consistent with the contract, and to complete the project. I would be remiss if I did not say that Travis in the water department is really the reason that this project was brought to our attention. And it was, and I know Art would say this if he was here, it was Travis's diligence that really brought this to our attention. And he went out, took pictures. He was really on top of it, brought it to administration. And then from there, we began to look at it. For those residents that live on that street, what I would tell you is that project should begin in the next 2 weeks to be completed. And then we're on a little bit of a time crunch because the batch plants will close for asphalt. So it's all coordinated so that once that project's finished, then they'll come through and they'll pave that road so that that road will be smooth. If we weren't to complete that project in a timely manner, we would be looking at having that road torn up throughout the entire winter. So I think the village made a decision to move forward with this contractor despite the difficulties we had, in the hopes that the project can still be completed on time this year. So that's kind of the update. If council feels that we need to be doing something stronger, we certainly can. There's options out there. We've obviously decided at this point to give them their opportunity to cure. We can certainly put them on notice of the things I've told you. We could send them a letter or something to that effect. We have had a meeting with them. It's up to council, but I think Council Member Cornett brings up a good point. I know a lot of people are talking about it, and it's our hope that it will be completed correctly.
So I think a couple of things there. So I guess one of the main things that I want to make sure, we tend to take a lot of blame or getting fingers pointed in these types of situations. And thankfully they don't happen very often, but this one, it certainly, I heard you say it's not to the fault of the village. Certainly has delayed the project itself. So in my opinion, I think a letter to the company would be a good idea. First of all, because I do believe that makes it a matter of public record that we can always come back to and say, here's really the baseline of what happened. And then secondly, I do think that we owe it to the community, the public, that is our main street, to certainly have some type of notification, whether it be Facebook press release or information as to, when this is going to wrap up, and kind of bullet points a little bit of, the project itself, and maybe a little bit about why we are where we are.
I know council received a detailed update about this. I'll ask the administrator, and Dale, you can do the same. I mean, we both talk to him regularly, to send out a communication indicating,
I would prefer that it come from you, Joe,
Okay.
because I think that's why we're not sharing, because we don't know
okay, I
what
see what you're
can be
saying.
said and what cannot. So
I understand.
ideally, I would like you to write it.
Got it. Okay, I understand. So I will do that.
Anything else, Kelly?
Let's see. And again, thank you to Travis Bonar and the water department. I know he and his team were instrumental in kind of catching what went wrong there. So appreciate what they've done there. My only other thing was a follow-up to Nancy, that COVID policy. Is that something that you have to put together and come back to us?
Yeah, we can bring it to the next meeting.
Okay.
And if you want to do it retroactive, is that the consensus?
Oh, I think so.
I mean, I think Chief Rocky's correct. There's been an uptick in lots of
Yes.
areas, and we don't know where the winter's headed.
Yep.
So,
And I would also suggest that one reason why we're in this position is because we had it time out previously. I don't think it should go on forever, but I'm wondering if there's a way to write it so that people aren't in this position if it were to ever be weird like this again. And I don't know the legal language on that.
we've always tried to have a start and an end date
Right.
on it,
Right.
mainly because we don't know where things are going. I think we just need to be diligent when it is about to expire to remind council.
Okay.
So.
Anything else, Kelly?
I'm good, thank you.
Kelly Campbell?
Yeah, I have a few things. I'd like to hit on some of what Kelly Cornett said. On your contract with the Ford development, can we make sure that it has something in there to do with finish work? For example, like my yard, I have mulch tree on the right, water meter on the left, and a great big grassy area on the far left. And when they dug it up, they threw all the mud in the mulch instead of out in the open, and I know a couple of my neighbors, they dug back really far. So maybe make sure that there's some finish work, some dirt or some grass seed coming through. This is on the Oglethorpe thing real quick. What did you say about the tax? You would notify the schools, and what did that mean?
So whenever we issue a tax abatement, in this case, a CRA, which is a community reinvestment area agreement, we're permitted to give abatements of a certain amount. And in the case of Oglethorpe, we exceeded that amount because the school agreed to it as well. So the school and the village were seeing a reduction in taxes from that property because of that agreement that we entered into with them. So I think it's only fair, since we're the ones that hold the agreement and we're canceling it, that we notify the school that we did so. We also have to notify the auditor so they know to collect the right amount of taxes. There are some abatements that we do that are within our threshold and we don't need school approval. But that was one of them. It was my recollection that we did exceed that amount. And so as a result, the school also had to bless it. So I think we need to let them know. So they'll, as I indicated, not only will the village see full tax revenue on that property now, but so will the school district.
Let's see, I'd had one other thing. I come across something, and I know that Robert was here, Joe was here, the mayor was here, Kelly, and I'm not sure about Nancy, but there was a hotel feasibility analysis drawn up probably in 2016 or 17. And at first thought, I was kind of just not really looking into it, but then I opened it up and I started reading it. And it has some pretty decent ideas in it as far as why the hotel would probably been a good idea, as far as like the antique show, the Bluegrass Festival, the fair. They were talking about, they interviewed several people in here. I know Delbert Eichholz was one, Kevin Kratzer, and several people. And with the concerts on the square and the beer fest now is a big hit, and all the different hunting seasons around, just maybe something to kick back around, and anybody wants to see this, they can gladly take a look at it. But just bringing that up, I run across it the other day and I thought I'd just bring it back up. That's all I got.
In regards to what Kelly was saying about the finish work on the project, someone asked me today, are they responsible for restoring curbs?
We're supposed to restore everything to its prior condition. So
Okay.
I'll make sure I address that.
Okay. All right.
And I'll also double check our contract.
Okay, very good. Big.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, very good. I have nothing other than the fact I'm going to defer it back to Jeremy and at this time.
Now you will.
That's right. Now I want you.
It's all about the timing. Okay. I would move that we go into executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G. 1, to consider the employment of a public employee and to consider the investigation of charges or complaints against a public official. And section 121.22G2, to consider the sale of property.
Have a motion to that effect. Is there a second to that? Second by Kelly Campbell. Which Kelly do I want to talk about? I guess I better do a roll call. Nancy?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Kelly Cornett?
Yes.
Kelly Campbell?
Yes.
Bink?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So
We'll
we'll stay in here, I think. I'm too tired to get up and move.
We're disconnected.
Does anybody have, you got any candy? I'm like